Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Lane. I'm Dave, the Caregiver's Caregiver at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, best-selling author and former mayor of Grover Beach in Central California, Debbie Peterson. And we're also coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks on 30 global audio video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, and the list goes on and on. I won't bore you. In fact, we're proud to be voted number one caregiver podcast on FeedSpot out of thousands, and number one caregiver podcast in the top 50 on Player FM. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. Barry Jacobs is a clinical psychologist, family therapist, and a principal for Health Management Associates, a national healthcare consulting firm, a former magazine journalist. He's the author of The Emotional Survival Guide for Caregivers, Looking After Yourself and Your Family While Helping an Aging Parent. And we also have his lovely wife, Julia Mayer. She's a clinical psychologist in private practice in Media, Pennsylvania, who has specialized for 3 decades in helping women in caregivers roles, as well as those with troubled marriages. The author of the novel A Fleeting State of Mind and co-author of AARP Meditations for Caregivers and AARP Love and Meaning After 50. She's a former president of the board of the Philadelphia Society for Clinical Psychologists, the Psychology Network. Since 2016, she has co-hosted the podcast Shrieks on the Third on psychology and social justice. The title of the show is going to be Why Won't Mom Let Me Help Her? That's great. Before we get started, I do want to thank my last week's guest, Barb Stone. Life is so much to drool about, overcoming challenges. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on our membership website, caregiverdave.com, or any of our other 30 global audio networks that I mentioned earlier. All right, enough of that. Welcome to the show, guys. So glad to have you on.
Really great for us to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'll talk about me, and then I'll let Julie talk about herself. So I grew up in a family where my dad had brain cancer while I was a teenager, and that had kind of a major impact on my life, especially while he was ill. But then afterwards, I learned at a very early age that illness doesn't happen to individuals; it happens to families. And after being first a journalist and trying my hand at other things, I eventually became a psychologist focusing on families caring for loved ones who have serious illness. And been doing this work now for 30 plus years, and was because I love to write, been doing a lot of writing, and I have a wonderful wife who writes with me. So and we live in the Philadelphia area, and I've been focusing clinically and through speaking and writing on supporting family caregivers for a very long time.
And a wonderful wife she is. How about you?
I'm also a clinical psychologist, and we have been married for 35 years almost. And we do write together, and we present together, and that's been really fun, especially since we became empty nesters now years ago.
Welcome to my world.
And I have a practice that I've had for about 30 years where I work with a lot of caregivers. Increasingly, as I get older and my clients get older, there's more caregiving involved.
Sure. I call it the caregiver tsunami. All of the baby boomers are getting old, and there's not enough people to actually care for them. And so that's a crisis as far as I'm concerned. I like Social Security, more people taking out than putting in. So let's talk about what's so hard about being on the receiving end of care. I mean, you would think they would appreciate us taking care of them, but that isn't always the case, is it?
It isn't. I mean, I think this is going to be very familiar to a lot of your listeners. And I mean, if you think about someone who's been a proud adult, very capable person, maybe someone who's cared for other people, and suddenly they have a stroke or they have they have a fall and they have a broken hip, or maybe they're beginning to have the early stages of dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're rather than being a giver, they're a receiver or a taker, and it feels very uncomfortable. It feels like a violation of their sense of identity, their sense of capability. And so what do? To feel capable, they try to deny that they need the care, and they often resist people's efforts to provide them with care. And so this comes up very, very commonly with very proud parents, and they're really well-meaning adult children. It certainly happened when Julie and I took care of my mom and stepdad, neither of whom really wanted any care. So it's not that they don't appreciate the efforts of their adult children, but it's more like they don't want to be a burden to those adult children. They don't want those adult children taking over their lives. And so they'll basically say, I'm fine, dear. You go do what you need to do. Take care of yourself and your family, and leave me alone. Let me live the way I want to live.
Yeah, that's right. It's a role reversal. The parent becomes the child becomes the parent. And it's uncomfortable for both of them. And, you got to swallow some pride and give each other grace. What do you think, Debbie?
I'm really curious. So when that happens, what do you do? How do you deal with that?
You tread lightly. So you suggest that helping your, let's say, aging mom is a way to give back to her, and that's meaningful for you. You suggest that if she allows you to, let's say, set up her pill box, you'll feel better because you'll know what's in there and it's the right thing.
Good luck with that.
And maybe it reduces your own anxiety, and she could help you reduce your anxiety by letting you help her.
They've got these wonderful pill boxes now that are kind of locked. You put them in, and then they beep. Okay, time to take this one, and time to take that one.
True.
With dementia, it's kind of difficult because my mother had dementia, and every time it beeped, she would answer the phone. No one's on the phone. So you have these challenges.
Yeah, the other thing I just add to what Julie said is the idea is to not set yourself up as an adversary for your parent, but to basically say to your parent, how do you want to live? Tell me how you want to live. Do you want to continue living in your home? Great. I'm all about that. I'm here to help you live in your home. Let's figure out how to do this. If maybe you need some handrails on the stairs. Maybe you need a ramp up to the front stoop. Whatever you need, I'm here to help you do it so you can live the way you want. So it's serving the parents' wishes rather than in any way taking away their independence.
Great point, right? Because it isn't about you, it's about them and their needs, and their needs and your needs are going to conflict. And, there's resentment. I didn't sign up for this. I was drafted. My brother should be doing this. My sister should be doing this. Why am I the lucky one? Stuff like that. But, it's all about perspective and having the right attitude, isn't it?
Absolutely. You want to try to make it a positive experience. This is usually someone that you care for or even love, and you want the relationship to be good. I've seen it as an opportunity for people where, their relationship with their parent wasn't so good, and in the caregiving role, they can improve it. So you want to be mindful. You want to think about what can you do to make this the most positive experience, laugh together, enjoy doing whatever the person is capable of doing together.
At what point do you think it's important to start to get some help with the situation? If you're finding resistance from family members, at what point do you go out for some help?
So it depends on what kind of help you mean, Donna. So, I'll just give you an example. My mom, very proud lady, take charge lady, ran, she was the head of the Parent Teachers Association when I was a kid, and she ran her own business, and, she liked to be the lady in charge. And then when she first started having kidney disease and later on started having early dementia, she did not want her son to be helping her. And so and as a matter of fact, she was quite vocal about not wanting me to be helping her. And so, what I would do is I would turn to Julie and I say, I would like Mom to consider having a home health aide come into the home once a week. If I bring it up, I'm going to get an automatic no. but perhaps you can get a different response from her. And in fact, that would often work. My mother, was very frank with me, very blunt, sometimes very, more blunt than I would prefer. But she was very polite and on her best behavior with Julie, and
Most of the time.
most of the time, yeah. And so, but
Buffer.
we would tag team a little bit, and so a lot of times you have to kind of think about who's the person who may be able to communicate most gently and get the best response. Um, I think that unless there's a real safety issue, you don't want to force help on a parent. If a parent is at risk of burning down the house because they're not turning off the stove, well, of course you're going to step in and really enforce some rules just for their well-being and for the good of the neighborhood. But if nothing like that's happening, then you want to, as Julie said earlier, you want to really tread lightly, go slowly, be very empathetic to what they're going through. Oftentimes we say to parents, did you take care of the parents who were resisting help? We say, when you were in your 40s and 50s, did you take care of your parents? And oftentimes they say, sure, I did. And we'll say, well, what was that experience like? And they'll say, well, they didn't want me to take care of them. And I'll say, well, what was that experience like for you to have your parents resisting your help? Because your kids are going through the same thing now. And they kind of get it. They'll understand. And that doesn't mean that they'll readily accept help. They may still very well resist it, but they understand. They see they'll be more apt to see their children as an ally rather than the adversary that we don't want to happen.
So in your book, the AARP Caregiver Answer Book, which sounds like a great title, what advice do you offer caregivers who don't feel appreciated by the people that they're caring for?
A lot of it has to do with the idea of compassion and dignity. If you are respectful, if you remember that this person is suffering and that they've lost a lot, it's so much easier to communicate with them. If you are not, as Barry was saying, opposing them, but instead joining them, they feel it. And if you can even express that you understand that this is hard for them and that they had a lot of pride in what they used to be able to do, and you're not trying to make it worse, you're trying to make it better. It's all about communication and compassion.
And it is about the other person's personality. I mean, my mother-in-law was a terrible patient. I mean, she was, I would just call her a witch, respectfully. My mother, on the other hand, was a teddy bear. Everybody loved her, but the other one was very critical and very like your mother, kind of, the way she treated you as opposed to the way she treated her. So you're either lucky or unlucky to have a difficult patient or a patient that's just, oh, honey, sure, that's okay. They're smiling all the time and they're always nice. They never raise their voice. They never curse at you and stuff like that. So it does have to do with how they act, right? And kind of mirror that. You have any questions, Debbie, on the next one?
Yeah, I'm curious about if you have any suggestions on how to help professional staff, nursing home staff, or maybe in-home and care staff, how you help them to deal with a resistant caregivee. I know I have a personal experience of a great aunt who every once in a while we'll get calls from the East Coast, and we're in California. There's really nothing we can do, and she's got pretty late stage dementia, so they're calling us, and we're like, But my ex-husband said, I know, just give her chocolate. She loves chocolate. Just give her chocolate. So now we send good chocolate.
That's the universal solution for all human problems, I think. That's great.
It is. My friend has a wife in a nursing home just recently, and he's really, depressed by this. He's just like, dead, and he doesn't know if she's going to live or die. And I go over there, and she doesn't know me. But the last time I went, all she told me was, have chocolate. So she says, well, make sure you have chocolate next time you go.
Well, thank God for chocolate. I mean, but the professional staff, they have a very difficult job, and especially when someone's in the later stages of dementia and they may be agitated or they may become confused and frightened. Those folks are trying to provide structure, provide predictability, provide security, and yes, they're going to deal with some resistant patients at the time. And it kind of, I hate to say it, but it kind of comes with the job. And the folks that do that work oftentimes are people who have a particular, mission and proud of that mission of working with individuals with cognitive confusion. In the earlier stages, when people are not so bad, what we try to do is recommend to professional staff that they don't try to take over what a resident of a nursing home's choices are. I mean, what happened? My mom, toward the end of her life, did go into a nursing home, and her first personal care aide, who was nurse's aide assistant, who was with her, was very kind of infantilizing and patronizing, just telling my mom what to do all the time, ordering her around. And my mother said, "No way, I'm going to listen to you. Who are you to tell me what to do? This is my life." And it was a bad fit, and we eventually asked the facility to assign a different aide for my mom, and it worked better. So again, to Dave's point earlier, we want to understand the person's personality. We also want to understand where they are in their disease state, if they have dementia, and then not really take over any more than you have to. That would be true for family members or for professional staff.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book. You have many books, and what started the association with AARP? I mean, how did that happen?
So in 2013 or so, AARP decided to make family caregiving one of its high priority projects.
Thankfully.
Thankfully, and AARP's been a real champion for family caregivers in the last decade and a half. But at that time, they decided to form what was called a caregiver expert panel, and they wanted a psychologist to serve on that panel. And so I knew some folks at AARP who were putting the panel together, and they asked me to join. And as part of that, I had the opportunity to start writing self-help columns for the AARP website. And because I love to write and I wanted to continue writing, I have continued doing it in the last 12 years, and it's just been wonderful. I've written probably close to 100 columns for them. And then as a result of the columns, they started asking us to write AARP branded books, first on caregiving, and then on marriage for folks after the age of 50. And then we have other books that we're working on for them currently. But the AARP is a wonderful organization, wonderful advocacy group, and it's been very, very helpful to reach audiences out there. Especially family caregivers, because family caregivers rely on AARP.
So I'm assuming you have sold a ton of books with your association with AARP.
I wouldn't say a ton. A ton suggests what is that, 20,000 pounds? Probably not a half ton either. I'm not sure. AARP is very helpful in marketing for sure, and the AARP brand name carries weight, so it's been very helpful for us.
Julia, do you have anything to add to that?
Actually, AARP, helped edit the books as well as market them. It's been a really good relationship over time, and hopefully it'll continue on. But yeah, I mean, if they post an ad, I think they did not long ago about our book that's coming out in July, the AARP Caregiver Answer Book. If it's in their magazine, all of a sudden people are pre-ordering it. It's nice.
Debbie, you have another question before we wrap it up?
I'm curious about your goals. What is it that you're hoping to achieve with the books, especially your most recent one?
We want caregivers, especially brand new caregivers who don't know what they're been getting into. We want them to have a roadmap. Any questions they have are in this book. It's 150 questions and answers that we have heard for decades now, all in one place, about everything you can think of having to do with caregiving. So it's really just a handbook for people who are caregiving.
So what's the most common question in there? Or what's the question that just shocked you that nobody's ever asked before?
I mean, so a few of the most common questions are like, what the hell am I supposed to do? I think that excuse my French, but some people they go get into this, they want to do the right thing, but they don't know how to do it right. So that's a very basic question for a beginner caregiver. Another very common question, which I know is like, how do I get my darn siblings to step up and actually help me? I mean, if there's anything that gets caregivers really hot under the collar, it's their siblings who won't help, or who then choose to criticize them for what they're doing. I mean, that drives adult children crazy.
What are the short answers to those two questions?
So what we say in terms of how do you do this right is you learn about what your caregiver's needs are, care receiver's needs are, and part of that is learning about their whatever their condition is. You learn about the resources that exist. You are working with that person, not providing care to them, but providing care with them to help them live as well as they possibly can with whatever life has handed them, and then you are practicing your own self-care as best you can, and in trying to find balance with the rest of their lives. And what we always say, and we say this again and again and again, is there's no perfect caregiving here, and there's no like one right way to do this. We all muddle along, we all learn in the process. I mean, Julie and I certainly did in our caregiving years. But the idea is we do the best we can, and the best we can is usually pretty darn good, and is usually makes a significant difference. So that's one answer. Julie, you want to take the other one regarding? Oh God, I'm having a senior moment here. What was the second question? The siblings. Do you want to do the siblings question?
What was it?
It was
Easy one.
yeah. It was about what do you do? How do I get my siblings to step up and help?
Well, I think the main thing that we do is we say to people when we're advising people on how to get their siblings to help, we say, talk to them about what it will be like down the road when the parent is gone. Are you going to feel like you were a team? Are you going to feel like you helped each other? Are you going to have a positive relationship going into the future? If you want that, then you need to cooperate now to make sure that we don't, have a rift between us because you're not helping out in whatever way you can. And both siblings have to be reasonable about what each of them is capable of doing.
Yeah. Well, time is the enemy, and we've run out of time. Where can people get a hold of you? And maybe they've got some questions that they, was never asked you. Can they actually contact you by email or some other way and find out some more stuff?
Yeah, people contact us all the time, and with some questions, and so we're in the midst of putting together a new website, but our old website where people can still reach us through is www.loveandmeaning.com. And the book, by the way, the AARP Caregiver Answer Book is available at all outlets. And then Julie and I are very active on social media, LinkedIn and X and Facebook, and we can always be found through social media if people want to reach out to us that way. And we welcome hearing from caregivers. Folks suffer, folks struggle. When in the answer to your question, Debbie, we don't want people to feel alone. We want them to understand that there's been generations of folks that have come before them that have done this work, and there are millions of Americans who are doing this work right now, and no one should have to feel alone with this. No one should have to feel lost at sea. And so there are ways that they can be led forward and feel supported, and we want them to have that feeling.
That's great. Mayor Debbie, how can people reach you and find out what you do?
You just said it, mayordebbie.com, and you'll be able to find links to my books, my Integrity 101 series, all available at Amazon.
Great. And remember that all our live shows become recorded pod and video casts on all your favorite platforms. My number one selling book, Your Life Too, How to Survive and Thrive as a Caregiver, is available wherever books are sold, and also on my free membership website, caregiverdave.com, where you can also schedule a free 30-minute initial coaching call to talk about whatever you're struggling with. You can also join my community of 34,000 caregivers on Facebook, Caregiver Dave, and we have lots of tools, resources, videos, this radio show, and much more. Click the like or follow button below whatever platform you're on. It'll help Google reach even more caregivers. So again, big thank you to all my listeners out there, and you guys. Thank you for coming in today, and for our audience making us the number one caregiver podcast on the internet. So until next time, same channel. God richly bless you all. Bye-bye. Thank you. Anytime we suffer loss, we grieve. And a lot of people don't realize what even the grief process is. But it could be 5 to 7 steps ranging from denial, I don't believe this is happening, anger, oh my gosh, I'm so upset this is happening, to a form of bargaining, how can I get out of this, to depression, which is a very serious thing because that often leads to suicide. And then finally, after you realize you have no more control over your situation and you're totally okay with the new normal that it brings, that wonderful, wonderful place called acceptance. Dave Nasani, the Caregiver's Caregiver, has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too, Thrive to Stay Alive as a Caregiver. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through, because he is one. He now speaks all across the country, offering caregivers his amazing caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first, before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's My Life Too, Thrive and Stay Alive as a Caregiver will help caregivers who are neglecting their sleep, diet, and social life and learn to put their needs first. Pick up your copy today or buy one for your special caregiver, on sale everywhere and at caregiverdave.com.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing.